Was anyone here when Mark played live?
It was the very first.
It was the very first ever Stone Club event,
Spaceship.
about 3 years ago now.
Wow,
No,
really?
well, nearly 3 years. Yeah, and I don't know. Let's start with let's start with how we first met.
I think so. Back in I guess you all know this story. In the late mid to late 90s, I guess, the last wave of all this happening. The Julian Cope Modern Antiquarian book came out, and then the website got set up, and there was this forum, and there's always just these people on there who just kind of, we were just chatting about this stuff and stones and things, and Matt was one of the people on there. And after a while, there'd be a gig or something, and we'd meet up, and I met Matt there once or twice at gigs and things, I guess. And then I remember I did a gig for you. Matt was running a label at the time, and it put out the second Spaceship album, and we did a gig in.
So that was your band at the time. So Mark S Williamson in a previous life was called Spaceship, and then Spaceship Mark.
It was the stupidest idea for a band name. In the days before Google, I was like, I was 19 years old, and I'm going to start making electronic music. And I did say to myself, what is the dumbest, stupidest name for like someone making weird electronic music? I know. And nobody had done it. As far as I could tell, nobody had called their band Spaceship, which astounded me. So I called it Spaceship, and so that was brilliant. And then the internet came along, and you searched for Spaceship, and clearly, I wasn't the top match. And then you searched for Spaceship Mark Williamson, and what you got was a guy called Mark Williamson who used to build spaceships for NASA. He was set. And then you searched for Mark Williamson music, and you got a Christian country star from California, I think. It was all just, anyway. So I got stuck with Spaceship. So we did this gig.
But at that time you did do a gig, it was in Bournemouth.
In Bournemouth.
In a heavy metal bar.
Yeah.
Called, I can't remember, it's got the Anvil.
Yeah.
The Anvil. It was the Anvil. So we did an Apollo Land Records showcase, yeah. We had a Dutch poet, well actually no, it wasn't a Dutch poet, it was a, what was it? It was, it's like North Holland. Oh my god, I can't remember the name, but anyway, it's a different language. It's a different language. It's basically the difference between Welsh and English, or Cornish and English in the British Isles.
Frisian?
Frisian. He was a Frisian poet called Jan Kleefstra. So we had him on, and he did it all in Frisian. So it's a winner, this gig, isn't it? So straight away we got posted a Frisian poet in Bournemouth, only speaking in Frisian. So sort of like weird Moog sounds. It was just like two people on Moogs, deep drone, and then someone shouting in a language no one understood in the room, and then Spaceship Mark to headline.
Yeah, it was brilliant, and I think we had like a 10 o'clock curfew because there was some like kind of locals dance music night going on afterwards, and they started letting people in before I'd finished, and I was standing with a guitar above my head, intoning about the Cernabis giant to a bunch of confused Bournemouth townies.
To just give this context, it was a transparent green guitar. The body of it was transparent green, and Mark had really long hair all the way down his back, and he was shouting, "I am the Cernabis giant," while punching holes through a sort of polystyrene ceiling with the guitar.
Yeah, I calmed down a bit.
So anyway, the great thing about the Modern Antiquarian Forum at that time, Megalithic Portal, Stone Pages, lots of sort of earlier internet versions, pre-social media versions of things where you could interact, and still existing, was that you could meet people that were into similar things. There were no, this night didn't happen, other things like that weren't really happening so much. If you went to Julian Cope gigs, you probably would meet quite a lot of people that would like similar things because they knew his music or they knew the Modern Antiquarian book, and it kind of worked both ways. Some people would go, "Oh, I didn't know he made music, it's a jolly good book," and then the other people who go, "I didn't know he'd written a book about standing stones, what's all that about?" But it was a good place to sort of meet. But I think the interesting thing that was going on with that is that people were kind of documenting their personal journeys through all of this. So some people were artists, some people were poets, some people were activists, some people were archaeologists. There was a group set up called the Heritage Action Network by a man called Nigel Swift, sadly passed away. But Nigel, I think actually was diagnosed with cancer at the same time that he set up the Heritage Action Network, and they both lasted for 20 years until he died. And I think the movement's still going, but basically the idea was that he would go on forums, find out where people lived, and then say, if you care about these local sites, if you really care about them, then you could be a warden or a carer for these places and go and have a look. If you see people doing, stupid shit, stop them doing it. If you see them burying crystals in the middle of a stone circle and digging holes, if you see them, just doing things that are damaging the site in any way, then stop them doing it. If you don't feel confident in doing that, then tell someone about it that looks after the site. So it's like a people action sort of thing, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's nice. And that whole time with it, and I was talking about this the other day, felt like kind of like it feels now. There's like this kind of resurgence of interest in all this stuff at the moment, and it just in a way, like we've said, where it's kind of universal, and it's like I'm into it because of this, I'm into it because of that, and what happened then, I think, was we had this beautiful time of everyone going, oh, I've been to Castlereagh, and I've been to Avebury, and I've been to Bellasnap, and I've been to, and then all of a sudden, like it's kind of like all the good places got been to, and everyone started going, oh yeah, I went to this round barrow in next to my local village, but then someone would say, oh, I think you'll find actually that's a bell barrow, and it got like that, and it kind of went. That things went a bit down there now. And what I'm loving at the moment with the enthusiasm that people have got for this stuff is that doesn't the train spotterism of it doesn't seem to have taken hold. It's like, no, let's just enjoy it for what it is and for whatever our interests are. And when you hear archaeologists talking about this stuff, and they seem to have that same enthusiasm, and you hear people like artists, and you hear musicians, and you hear all these people talking about it. And at the moment, it feels that people have got this wonderful enthusiasm for it without it having to be. It's not a bell barrow. That's a disc barrow. Clearly, it's like that's not there, and that's wonderful. I think at the moment, that's brilliant.
Well, I think the thing that I got from it that was so important was that there was a real sense of community. Community is perhaps an overused and misused word, but it was a real community because it was people that shared in the joy and the gift of what was going on and wanted to gift it to each other and share things around. And I think that leads really nicely into the work that you did, because you prolifically travelled around and documented all kinds of places, and that's really what we're exploring tonight a little bit. So tell us about the first journeys that you made, and then perhaps we'll show something.
Okay, so I mean, my stone journey started with a this was back, obviously, again, this is pre-internet, and say you couldn't even get a book, and I went, and it's really weird. I think I got this book in Stamford's, the map shop, on a trip to London with my family, and it was called Megalithic Mysteries by Michael Balfour. It was a massive coffee table thing. It was huge. It was like A1 or something. It's enormous, and I used to drive around with this thing in the car, going to these places, and it was years later that you would then look in it and you go, oh my god, I went to there, and just this place in the next field isn't in the book, and I didn't go. But it started with that, and on and on. I kind of visited lots of places in the UK, driving around, like borrowing my mum's car and all this kind of thing, like we all did. And then when I was, how old was I? 21, 22. My sister got a job as a holiday rep. And by pure, absolute massive coincidence, she got placed on a campsite in Carnac in Brittany. And she told me, oh, I'm going to this place called Carnac in Brittany. And she had no idea. And I was like, oh my god, you go to Carnac in Brittany? I've got to come and see you. So I went and I visited her, and it was just incredible. So I thought, how on earth can I get to come here? I know, I'll apply for a job as a holiday rep and hope for the best. And I begged them. I went to the interview, and they offered me the job, and I said, I really, really, really want to go and work in Carnac. And they said, oh, well, when people want to go and work somewhere, we don't normally let them work there because they'll just spend all their time looking at stones instead of doing any work. I said, no, but I'll be really useful because I can tell people about it. It'll be really cool. And yeah, and it was brilliant. And they let me work there. And the 1 year that I was there, I even had a job showing people around the stones. And so I spent three summers. I spent the whole summer in Carnac. I was out in France for 7 summers altogether, and spent 5 or 6 of them in Brittany. And bought there's 3 1 to 25,000 scale maps that cover basically the Carnac region, and they're covered in these little pink stars which tell you that there's a dolmen or a standing stone or a whatever. I think I ticked off almost all of them on those 3 1 to 25,000 scale maps by bicycle, and then by this brilliant moped that someone sold me for 30 quid. And then I had a car the final year, which was even better because I could actually drive around and see stuff. So yeah, I got the bug for that, and then I had a big break actually. About 10 years, didn't really go and see anything, and then, yeah, not so long ago, a few years ago, started back up again. And you're going to ask me about
Sven. Tell us about Sven.
Does anyone know about Sven? One person does, because at least one person has asked me about him already. In the horrible COVID summer of 2020, I had this little van that I'd had for years and years, and I decided I was going to convert this van into a little tiny camper van, which I did, and that's become the little vehicle for going around and visiting places in now. And yeah, it's kind of around about the same time that I played at that first Stone Club night, and I was thinking about making films and stuff. And I've been thinking, how can I make something that Matt and Ali can show that like, it's not going to take up the whole night, it'll be something nice. And I thought back to these films that I'd already been making, which were called the traffic report films. And I was living in London, I was living near Epping Forest, so just into Essex, and I was commuting around to Watford, which meant it was essential that every morning I listened to the traffic reports on Radio 2 to find out whether I could get around the M25 or not. And I became fascinated by all the weird places that you hear about, like the Sun in the Sands, and the Polish War Memorial, and the Black Cat Roundabout, and all these weird places that like had these names, and it's like, what is there? So I made this series of films called Traffic Reports. And shall we show one of the Traffic Reports films? So this was the second one, which I made about Clackett Lane services. That's exciting. And Clackett Lane services turned out to be much more interesting than I thought it was going to be, as you will see in a moment in this short film. Here we go. From Winchester to Canterbury, the Pilgrim's Way winds across the North Downs, but the Pilgrim's Way itself is imposed on the much older Harrow Way, which has been dated to around 500 BCE, but is thought to be much older. Close to the Surrey-Kent border, a now invisible Roman road heading north-south bisects the Pilgrim's Way and marches down into the valley. Nearby, the modern Rectory Lane becomes Clackett Lane, following a path parallel to its Roman precursor. This narrow road with its high hedges descends into the valley towards the M25. As it enters the romantically named Cupid's Coppice, an excuse for a lay-by is still seen as the location for pasty eating and inconsiderate littering. Entering a service station on foot is a curious experience, not least because there is a constant nagging feeling that you can't remember where you parked the car. Posters advertise offers of food and the availability of a cash machine. Motorists drift in and out of the main service station building. On the far side, separating this building from the lorry section of the car park, is a bed planted with a row of trees. I suspect this follows the route of the Roman road. A small display inside the service station confirms this. Prehistoric track, Roman road, pilgrimage route, modern track, motorway. Clackett Lane has forever witnessed people on their way somewhere else. Crossing the motorway to the clockwise branch, this seems to be the quieter of the two directions. Elderly Dutch tourists promenade around the car park. I imagine they are ignorant to the thousands of years of travel history that surrounds them. Inside I drink coffee, while a girl in an inexplicable rabbit costume moves a table. The solitary gamer shoves coin after coin into the fruit machine. Returning outside, I find again the line of the Roman road, separating the main services from the petrol station. I see a poster advertising a party. I cannot tell if the first 3 lines are separate acts or some sort of proclamation of fact. Beckett Lane then. In times of heavy traffic, a port in the storm, where road-weary drivers stop to wait it out with Costa and McDonald's, unaware perhaps how long this site has been on the route to a better place.
I feel a bit bad for Carl Cox.
Carl Cox eats everything hot since 82, was 86, wasn't it? That's it, Carl Cox eats everything hot since 82.
So basically you're looking at ancient trackways and you're mapping them over modern service stations and find everything else in between.
Yeah, but that honestly, that was a complete fluke. So when I made the traffic reports, my kind of rule was, choose where you're going, that morning, look at the Wikipedia entry, and then go and film. So I had no idea that any of that stuff was going to be there until about 2 hours before I was going to film it. So then I thought, can I apply what I was doing with that to some of these ancient sites? And I think with the traffic, I was thinking about this with the traffic reports as well, and I think it's come more as we've gone on with the Stone Report films. He's kind of a character. The guy that does the narration on these is kind of a character. He is me, but he's a bit grumpy and he's a bit more cynical, and he loves it. Deep down, he loves it. But he's like Eminem to my Marshall Mathers. I'm the sensitive one, and he's the one who's not scared to tell people who tie stuff in trees off, essentially. That's the concept.
I love that analogy.
Yeah, that's it. So I just started visiting places, and wherever I went, and normally I'm a primary school teacher. That's my vocation. But I'm on a year's artistic leave at the moment. But a lot of my artistic work is geared around what I can do in the time that I have. So it's like, can I go to somewhere? Can I film? Can I come back? Can I edit? Can I write? Can I zap it out quick before I've got to put someone's commas in for the next 5 hours? So yeah.
But it's true to say as well, though. I mean, you shouldn't really underplay the primary school teacher bit. I know that you're on a year's break because you needed a break and you wanted some time to explore a bit more and do things personally. But actually, I think it was during lockdown you just made a whole series of there's this time in lockdown everyone remembers, but there was a time when kids weren't. Education was kind of compromised, and it's probably challenging enough as it is. But you would spend ages dressing up in costumes, doing all kinds of voices, making all kinds of films for the one class that you teach in Todmorden in West Yorkshire. But not only that, you would actually put them on YouTube so any teachers around the United Kingdom could use them. And it's an interesting thing though that you make a lot of things and you give them away, whether it's information about motorway services, ancient sites, or education, and you kind of are an educator, I think, more than anything.
Well, yeah, I don't know. Maybe I've always believed that if you know something, it's worth telling someone, and people don't always want to listen, and my brain doesn't always tell me when people aren't interested. I will just tell them anyway, because that's the way I'm wired. But yeah, I mean the lockdown stuff. I mean, I made I can't remember what it was, 165 hours of films. I think I made during lockdown.
You didn't just make one thing. It was 10 minutes, and you can have this for your lesson and program. And it was hours and it was like box sets, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was a lot. But but I read all the books that we used as class books. This is not Stone Club stuff. Well, and then for years afterwards, instead of having to read those books to the class, I could just put the video on and sit there getting on with something else. So I was thinking. Anyway,
you're being too modest, but I'm not going to go into it anymore.
Yeah. So that led on to the Stone Report.
Yeah.
So sort of applied the same things to that.
Yeah. So if anyone's been, who's been to Stone Club before that's in the room at the moment? There's a good amount. And new people too. New people. Who's new tonight? First time. That's also really good. Welcome. So every time we do these nights, not every time, but usually we'll show a Stone Report film, and they're usually sort of a couple of minutes to 4 minutes long, and they're always made by Mark. And we put them on quite often at the beginning, a bit like the film we showed earlier, and we play them, and that sort of sets the tone for the evening. And you get to see an ancient site every time. It's wherever he's been, but you get to see one every time. And it's a really lovely thing we've always really supported. And then people kept asking, like, when the Stone Report coming back, because, you know, he didn't make any for ages, and then I think I was like, oh, what was it, the highly anticipated return of Stone Report back. But tell us about the first one, because is it the first one that we're showing?
I think we're showing about the third one.
Okay.
Because I think this is where it kind of like hit its stride as a bold new format in filmmaking.
Shall I put it on?
Put it on.
Do you want to tell us about the site at all?
But briefly, this is the Hellstone in Dorset. I went down to Dorset in Sven the van and had a wonderful day walking around lots of sites there, and whilst I was doing that I shot this footage.
I should also say about Sven is that most of what you'll see tonight is on YouTube, but if you want to see how Sven was made, is that still there as well?
Still there. My YouTube channel is an absolute shit show. It's like, it's half of it is beautiful videos about stones and art and things, and half of it is me pretending to be an influencer telling you all about my van and my nice holidays.
but if you didn't want to,
it's a massive art joke. Like in my mind, all the van videos are this really high level art joke, but it looks like I'm trying to like get loads of followers by being some sort of van influencer.
Vanfluencer. But also, if you do want to do up your own van, it's really helpful.
It is actually. Yeah.
I haven't got any of the practical skills. I watched one of those episodes. I was like, I have no idea how he cuts the carpet or does any, you know. It's very technical anyway. He's really good at doing up vans, so if you can't make your own van, you could probably commission him because he's got a year off.
On Portisham Down, high above the swan-obsessed village of Abbotsbury, and in the shadow of the Kiss Me Hardy monument, sits the Hellstone Dolmen. Day in July, the stones are obscured by desiccated vegetation and the sun beats down hard. The Hellstone is yet another example of overzealous and sadly inaccurate restoration. From 1886 to 1889, the tumbled stones of the chamber, or indeed chambers, of a long-ruined long barrow were fancifully rearranged and re-erected into the curious megalithic Pandora we see today. In common with many monuments, seemingly too large or heavy to have been erected by human hands, local folklore tells that the stones of the Hellstone were tossed by the devil from the Isle of Portland, dominating the horizon at the far end of Chesil Beach as he diverted himself at quoits.
So the music you also make, and it's probably good to talk about that a little bit as well, because you also make music at these sites and make music generally, and also the zines are worth mentioning, I think, as well, because you've also, well, you've been really prolific this year. I mean, I'm not sure you're taking any time off, but you're certainly using your time wisely. Can you tell us a bit about the music and tell us a bit about the zines that you've been making recently?
Yeah, so, well, firstly, the music for the Stone Reports is a mixture of things. Some of it is music that I've made on site, some of it is music that I've made using recordings that I've made on site. There's lots of little Easter eggs in it. Say, for example, there's a place called The Miller's Grave, which is in the first season of Stone Reports. The music for that, if you listen to it, is actually the Miller song from Bagpuss slowed down about 30 times. I think that the Greycroft one, which is the stone circle next to Sellafield, if you really have the best ears in the world, somewhere in the background there is Radioactivity by Kraftwerk is playing in there. So there's stuff like that. So with that, it's quite playful. I've also been doing this kind of stuff. I started making some music when I had this time off because I got all really hyper and started like frantically making music. And I decided this music was going to be all about seabirds, and I thought, oh, I'll do a guillemot and I'll do this and I'll do that, and then I'll make a zine and I'll do pictures of all these animals as well. And then I'll make this zine, and what I'll do is on the front of the zine I'll put issue 1. And then I thought, these have got to do issue two at least. So the second issue I got thinking about, again going back to those pre-internet days before we could just go and Google stuff, where you had to go out and you had to get books from obscure bookshops, and you like had to travel. I remember I used to come down to London occasionally with my family, and and I used to love going down like Charing Cross Road, and all the bookshops were there, and into Foyles and stuff, and you would search. So I thought all these archaeologists, these people like R.J.C. Atkinson and Glyn Daniel, and these people who are these real classic old archaeologists, but those are the books you had to buy to find these places to go. So the second volume was about them, and for each one I've made an album of music. So the archaeologist one, each piece of music is named after a chapter title from the archaeologist it refers to. I'm working on the third one at the moment, which is about shapeshifters in folklore around the world. And I'm not told it, this is exclusive. Weirdly, it's turned into like this like proper like black metal album. I'm doing all the proper like, and all that business. It's great. And like I always wanted to make a metal album and I never had it. So like now I'm making this. God indeed, ancient megalith. It's wonderful. So that's the other thing I'm doing. It will come out eventually, I think. And then I want to do one about nursery rhymes. I'm not sure about that. I want to do a retelling of Beowulf in ABAB rhyme for children. There's loads of ideas. And there's also a zine of the first season of Stone Report, which is the first 7 films. It's a script and it's stills and maps and a CD with all the soundtracks on. And because I've got them here, so I'm just doing the selling bit now. 10. I know some people have seen this on Instagram exclusively already. 10 exclusive Christmas decorations, hand sewn, beautifully, sanding stone Christmas decorations. So I've got those later as well. Yeah, and I'm making loads of them. I'm making loads of music all the time, and all sorts of things as well.
And all sorts of other zines as well. I mean, all sorts going on.
Yeah.
Also, you wrote for Lally's magazine.
I wrote an article about teaching music in primary schools, which I'm quite passionate about, and getting children into playing music. And the idea that there's 2 routes into playing music. There's lots of routes into playing music, but the one traditional route is pick up an instrument, practice it for years and years and years and years, do loads of grades and stuff, and eventually someone might let you be 3rd clarinet in your orchestra. Or buy a guitar, form a band, play, and eventually perhaps like get better at the instrument. It doesn't really matter. And my approach is the second one, and it's just like getting children and just getting loads of percussion instruments and dragging stuff out of the cupboards and just letting them go for it. And it's been really amazing. Like this year we've had, we've been reviewed we had a 3/4 page review in The Wire for an album by a bunch of kids hitting stuff. We were reviewed on The Quietus. We top and tailed an edition of the Radio 3 New Music Show, like the most highbrow like new music show in the world. It's insane. And I wrote about this for Lally's magazine, so I suggest you check that out as well, because I think I kind of got the ideas across in the article that I wrote. I just think it's really important that children get to express themselves musically and don't have to like sit there going, oh my god, my finger's in the wrong place for 6 years. That doesn't make sense.
Yeah, making it fun.
Yeah.
Okay, so should we bring up to date then with
Yeah.
with the latest Stone Report? So this one's never been seen. This is like the beginning of the night normally at Stone Club, but it's not tonight because we've got you here with us, which is great.
So yeah, this is season 2, episode 2. Filmed not that long ago, a couple of months ago, when I was up in the Lake District, the South Lakes, near Ulverston, and this is about a site on Berkeley Common.
All is peaceful on Berkeley Common, except for the incessant barking of the local farm dogs. Way out west on the Furness Peninsula, the common is home to the stone circle known as the Druid's Circle. Consisting of 2 concentric rings of local limestone, the circle dates to the Bronze Age and was found to contain a number of cremation burial. The debate rumbles on as to whether such sites as these should be designated as stone circles or circles of stone, reserving the former for earlier, seemingly purely ceremonial circles dating back to the Neolithic. To do so, though, would perhaps rob sites such as these of some of their perceived importance. With views to the Cumbrian Fells in the north and Morecambe Bay to the south and east, there seems to be a function in its location. The common is the home of several further Bronze Age funerary monuments, but sadly most are covered by a blanket of bracken, too long having passed since it was last cleared. Close to the village of Great Urswick, a few miles away, is a dolmen-like site, marked on the map as a burial chamber. There are several similar natural limestone formations nearby, but the Gothic typeface on the Ordnance Survey map says it must be the real deal.
Thank you. So for a good while, yeah, into next year we'll be playing the rest of season 2, and then you always put them up on YouTube the following day, so people can find them.
Yeah, they always go. I think I normally set them for 11:59 on the night of the premiere. People can find you in all the usual places, and you'll be at the back at the end tonight as well if people want to come and say hello and have a look at your things. I really want one of those Christmas decorations as well, so I'm gonna Gotta get in there quick.
I'm gonna. It's 10.
10. 10. Spaceship Mark on all of them. Instagram. I'm kind of trying to stop using the Twitter account, but that's still there. Blue Sky, because we're all into that now. And all of that, yeah, Facebook even.
So yeah, have a look at Mark online. We'll post all the links tomorrow on Stone Club socials as well, like we always do, and share some of these things as they're coming out. You can find the first season of Stone Report on the Stone Club website as well, and Mark's YouTube, and much more to come. But for now, thank you so much, Mark S Williamson.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, we're going to carry on with walking theme. Thank you, Mark.